Thank you. Thank you, conference. Thank you, Figan. Thank you, Pooja, by leading by example, so powerfully showed just on that video just now. And Margaret, thank you so much for that introduction. I know it wasn't easy, even after the unimaginable loss of losing James, after all those obstacles deliberately put in your way. With this Hillsborough law, you and the other families, some of them are with us this afternoon, and other campaigners have served a degree of justice for James, for the 97, but also for thousands of people that you will never know and you will never meet, who will never now have to go through what you went through. Thank you. Thank you. Margaret, I remember meeting you and some of the other families nearly 15 years ago now with Bishop James Jones. I was humbled to be able to campaign after such loss. As a father of a daughter aged 14 and a son aged 17 who goes to football with me, 1 year younger than James was, I honestly don't think I would have the courage to do what you have all done. I was also struck at that first meeting by meeting some family members who had never felt able to talk about what happened that day, perhaps because they feared that people like them would never be heard. Conference, this party was founded to hear working class people like that, to look directly into the eyes of their suffering, even when the state turns its back. And so the Hillsborough law is not just a promise delivered, it is also a recognition that whether it's Hillsborough, Grenfell, Windrush, Horizon, the grooming gangs, infected blood, and so many more, the British state consistently refused to see injustice because of who the victims are. Because they're working class, they're black, they're women and girls. And so, Margaret, I know we can never undo the pain for you and all the other families, but we can show that in the Britain that we are building, the state will see, the state will listen, the state will be accountable to working people, because now injustice has no place to hide. That's National Renewal Conference. Government and working people working together to drag us out of decline, building a new Britain. Now, it's an urgent task. We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline. A country proud of its values, in control of its future, or one that succumbs against the grain of our history to the politics of grievance. It is a test, a fight for the soul of our country, every bit as big as rebuilding Britain after the war, and we must all rise to this challenge. Yet we need to be clear that our path, the path of renewal, it's long, it's difficult, it requires decisions that are not cost-free or easy, decisions that will not always be comfortable for our party. Yet at the end of this hard road, there will be a new country, a fairer country, a land of dignity and respect, everyone seen, everyone valued, wealth creation in every single community, working people in control of their public services, the mindless bureaucracy that chokes enterprise removed so we can build and keep building, clean British energy powering our homes, technology harnessed to drive us forward, our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism. Conference. Thank you, Conference. The basic, ordinary hope of a better future for our children restored for millions. And through that, a Britain that has rediscovered the belief, the togetherness, the pride to take control of its future. That's what we're building, Conference. That's national renewal, a Britain built for all. But there is another path. We can call it the path of decline. But in truth, it leads to ruin, to chaos, to Britain being poorer in every sense. And it's a tempting path because it asks nothing of people, makes no demands, suggests no difficulties. All you need to do is listen to politicians who tell you there's a quick fix, a miracle cure, tax cuts that magically pay for themselves, a wealth tax that somehow solves every problem. The Brexit lies on the side of that bus. Click here for your new country. We can all see these snake oil merchants on the right, on the left, but be in no doubt, Conference, none of them have any interest in national renewal because decline is good for their business. I mean, think about it. When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does. So he resorts to grievance. They all do. They want to turn this country, this proud, self-reliant country, into a competition of victims, saying to you, to working people, don't trust in each other. You can't fix this. This is not a great country. But it is, Conference. It is a great country. It will always be a great country, a decent, pragmatic, tolerant, reasonable country that throughout history has stood its ground, stuck by its values, and built its future without fuss. That's the Britain I'm fighting for, Conference, a nation of resolve, a land of respect, a Britain built for all. And Conference, I welcome the new US initiative to bring peace to the Middle East. I strongly support efforts to end the fighting, release every hostage, and urgently scale up aid into Gaza. All sides must now come together to bring this initiative into reality, because we must restart the hope of a two-state solution, a safe and secure Israel, alongside the long-promised Palestinian state, a state that this country now recognizes. Conference. Thank you, Conference. Thank you. Conference, I will never give up on diplomacy. And I will never doubt British values, rules that protect those in need, respect for difference under the same flag, the freedom to live and let live. I will never doubt that these values make us strong in a world that preys on weakness. How could I? The progress, the prosperity, the peace I've seen throughout my life, the journey I've been on, from a working class background to this. I owe everything to this country and its values. But working people, they're losing faith. They're ground down. Politics has made them question Britain. And can you blame them? They've been nothing but patient. They lived through austerity, Brexit, COVID, played by the rules, kept their side of the bargain. But time and again, politics ducked the challenge of renewal. Their high street, their pubs, their youth clubs, the places that shape a life, that create a common memory, struggling against the tide of decline. That is why we must never, never find ourselves defending a status quo that manifestly failed working people. That's what I say to people who think it would be nice if we could just go back to politics before Brexit or the crash. And this does go back that far, conference. The global financial crisis is when we were exposed, when a new Britain should have been born. Complacent. That's the only way to describe it. Complacent. We place too much faith in globalization, the establishment across so many institutions, in hock to its lazy assumptions that immigration is all we need to give us the workers. Infrastructure will always be there because we built it decades ago. The world always on hand to give us the goods. It doesn't matter if our industry leaves. It doesn't matter if we don't train our young people. It doesn't matter if wealth creation is hoarded by just a few communities. Well, conference, look at our world now. Because in our age of insecurity, we can see now that it does matter. We do need to put our security first. We do need to unlock the potential of every community. We do need a more muscular state, freed from the red tape that stops us building, growing our economy from the grassroots, renewing every town and city on these islands. It comes back to growth. So much of it comes back to economic growth. In fact, I'll say it now so there's no doubt. The defining mission of this government is to grow the economy, improve living standards, and change the way we create wealth. An economy that grows not just from the top, but from the grassroots. Because growth is the pound in your pocket. It is more money for trips, meals out, the little things that bring joy to our lives, the peace of mind that comes from economic security. But it is also the antidote to division. That's the most important aspect of national renewal. The way you grow an economy, not just how much, but who and where benefits, that can either build a nation or it can pull it apart. And in the world we must face, the threats we must defeat, Britain needs an economy that unites. Every person, every community, every great nation on these islands standing together, as so often in our past, facing down the threats of a volatile world. And it is a choice. You can exploit asset bubbles to distract from stagnating wages. You can balance the books by cutting long-term investment. You can cut taxes for the few whilst dismantling the infrastructure for the many. But the affordable homes that we built, the libraries that we opened, the Sure Start centres that gave so many families a better start in life, all in it together. That's what they said. Come on. The country they created, it's still around us today. Old and young, north and south, scrapping over the crumbs, draining the well of responsibility, the patriotic responsibility that we owe to one another. But there's another choice, Conference. You can choose industrial policy, government and business bringing the future closer, British graft backed everywhere, from the steelworks in Scunthorpe to the data centres in Essex and the wind farms of South Wales. You can choose to unleash British enterprise, strip out bad regulation, confront the blockers that strangle a thriving private sector. The most important thing we need for every community to stand more proudly on their own feet. You can choose to challenge the outdated dogma and say with one clear voice that public investment does not crowd out private, that we should invest more outside London and the South East, and that a more secure labour market with stronger workers' rights will be better for productivity. And Conference, you can choose to rebuild our public services, choose investment over austerity. That's the choice we made at the last budget. A hard choice, difficult decisions on taxation, but Conference, that's the choice that we made. Now, I want to thank every business in our country on this issue. We asked a lot at the last budget. I know that. I do think, in the long run, fixing our public finances, investing in new infrastructure, helping our public services off their knees, that will be better for growth. But equally important, because of your contribution, we've taken a huge step on the path of renewal, a firmer foundation to take our country forward. More security, more respect, more opportunity. A Britain built for all. A Britain built for all. Every decision Conference, every decision we took this past year, it's all been in pursuit of that mission, changing the way we create wealth, reforming public services, giving people more control over our future. Take our investment in defence, undeniably good for growth, vital for national security and the whole of the continent, impossible without really tough decisions on aid. Just look at the New Deal to build Norwegian frigates. That doesn't happen without our investment. A decade of shipbuilding on the Clyde. That heritage, that pride, secure for future generations. Now, those frigates could have been built anywhere, but that was the old mentality, that it didn't matter. But we want to build them here, in Britain. We want to invest in that reputation, in those skills, in the talent of Glasgow and the Clyde. Now, Conference, 5 days after that deal, I went to the shipbuilding yard on the Clyde. I went to the canteen where the workers were having their lunch. I stood in front of them and I said, thank you. Thank you for your hard work and your reputation that allowed us to win that deal. They were being judged against other countries, France, Germany, and the US, and they won. They were proud. They said to me that this was the answer to the mantra that they heard. People who said British shipbuilding was dead. They told me how much it meant to them and their communities. And they were proud because they knew exactly what those frigates were for. And they were proud to contribute, proud that their community was chosen by an ally looking for a partner to defend our continent from Putin's aggression. And conference. Or take our investment in childcare. 30 hours free for every child between 9 months and 4 years. A massive difference to the cost of living. Thousands of pounds back in the pockets of working parents because we made tough decisions, tough Labour decisions at the last budget. Now, this will help parents and carers back to work, especially women, and that is good for growth. But fundamentally, it's for the children. Now, last year, Bridget and I went to a primary school in Nuneaton, and we got talking to the reception teacher. And she said that some kids arrive in reception reading books, others are still virtually in nappies. There's similar stories right across the country. Inequality at age just 4, baked in for life. So our childcare provision is a game changer, giving every child the best start in life, every single child equal at the starting line of their education. That's National Renewal Conference. That's why we made the tough decisions. And I make no apologies if they tilt towards working people, because it's working people who paid the price of Tory decline. That's why we invested in our NHS, fired up Great British Energy, stood up for British Steel, new protectors for renters, sick pay for the least well-off, fire and rehire finished, zero-hour contract scrapped, record investment in Scotland and Wales, rebuilding our schools, new homes, new towns, new train lines, publicly owned, of course, spreading prosperity right across Britain. And a proper living wage conference, the culmination of a long journey for our movement, a mark of a Britain built for all. Thank you, conference. And conference. Extending free school meals, 100,000 children lifted out of poverty. The first step on our journey to end child poverty. We have walked that road before, and we will walk that road again. Because a Britain where no child is hungry, where no child is held back by poverty, that's a Britain built for all. But there's another cause that we must also take up, conference. It strikes to the heart of what we stand for and who commands our respect. People like my dad. I think by now you know what he did for a living. But then again, do you? Do you really know the skill, the craft, the precision that goes into tool making? Now, but the thing is, conference, the thing is, he always felt disrespected, my dad, undervalued by the nation because he worked with his hands. And I can see why. He worked hours and hours at night school when he was an apprentice. I went to Leeds University, had a good time. It's a good place to have a good time, is Leeds. And then when I came back, I officially became the first in my family to go to university. I was put on that pedestal. Working class families know exactly what I mean. I thought about this when I visited those frigates on the Clyde. The apprentices there, they took me on board. They showed me how they were rewiring it. Miles and miles of wire, difficult, high-skilled work, really complicated, and of course vital for our country. I thought about my sister, a care worker. She works with adults with Down syndrome. It's amazing work. I know I could never do it in the way that she does. Also vital for our country. And then I think about my brother. He was failed. He had difficulties learning. He was badly failed by the education system. He was put to one side, barely even seen. Our conference, some politicians say, I want every child to have the same opportunities that I had. You hear a lot of that in Westminster. But that's not me. No, what I want is a Britain where people are treated with the dignity that they deserve for making different choices, choices our country needs, choices we should value, choices that deserve our respect. And so, conference, while you will never hear me denigrate the aspiration to go to university, I don't think the way we currently measure success in education, that ambition to get 50% of kids to uni, I don't think that's right for our times. Because if you're a kid or a parent of a kid who chooses an apprenticeship, what does it say to you? Do we genuinely, as a country, afford them the same respect? Because we should, but I can't help feeling that my dad was right. So, conference, today I can announce we will scrap that target and replace it with a new ambition that 2/3 of our children should go either to university or take a gold standard apprenticeship. Thank you, conference. Thank you. Thank you, conference. Thank you. I can also announce that further education, so long as Cinderella service, ignored because politicians' kids don't go there, we will make it a defining cause of this Labour government, with higher standards in every college, the quality of teaching raised, more apprenticeships, more technical colleges, technical excellent colleges, qualifications linked to jobs, rooted in their communities. And as Rachel announced yesterday, a new guarantee, training, work support or an apprenticeship for every young person struggling to find work. That's young people backed, the class ceiling smashed, the grafters finally included in our country's highest aspiration. That's national renewal. That's a Britain built for all. That's what I stand for, conference. And let me tell you, I also know what I stand against. And I have had enough of lectures from self-appointed champions of working people who want to shred our public service, level down workers' rights, crash the economy like Liz Truss. Politicians who lied to this country, unleashed chaos, and walked away after Brexit, who equivocate of Putin in Ukraine, who even now go to America and grub around for money, talking this great country down. No. No more lectures from them. Because Labour is the party for working people. Labour is the party for national renewal. Labour is the patriotic party. Let me take you back to 1996, Wembley, the old Wembley, actually. I was there. It was that semi-final. Electric, we're all singing with one voice, football's coming home. Now, of course, it didn't actually come home. No cheering at us. But, you know, it did feel like something was stirring in England that evening. An England that belonged to our grandparents and our history, but also to our children and our future. North and south, black and white, old and young, an England united by a flag that stood for all. Now, I'm not going to pretend I would enjoy it if England lost to Scotland or Wales. The Union does have some limits. But I can say, I'm not just proud of the Union Jack and the Cross of St George. I'm also proud of the Saltire, of the Red Dragon, proud of our Union, the astonishing relationship between our four great nations. Four different nations, yes, but four nations that time and again have been through fire together, built so much together, a country forged by the solidarity of working people. So let's fly all our flags, Conference, because they're our flags. They belong to all of us, and we will never surrender them. Let us unite our country behind them. Because this is no time for dividers. This is the time for bringing the whole country together. That is how we will fight next year's elections as patriots of our great nations. That's who we are. That's who Eluned is, who Anas is, what we stand for. A campaign to renew Wales, renew Scotland and renew Britain. But then that's just the point. Because for me, patriotism is about love and pride, about serving an interest that is more than yourself, a common good. And the question I ask seriously of Nigel Farage and Reform is, do they love our country? Do they want to serve our country, all of it, our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country, every region, nation and city? Or do they just want to stir the pot of division because that's works in their interests? Do they truly believe in our potential, in our brilliance, in all the innovative wonders of our economy, from clean energy to creative arts? Or if a business looks a little too modern, do they say, as Farage said about Jaguar Land Rover, they deserve to go bust? And Conference, when push comes to shove, do they really want to fix our problems and renew Britain? Or, as we've seen time and again, whether it's the SNP, the extremes of the left, or Reform and the Tories now, do they actually want Britain to fail? I think we know the answer to that question. So let me say this, because whilst we must come together to fight reform with everything that this movement has, we must go into that battle armed, not just with words and condemnation, but with action. And that means tackling all the problems that they prey upon. All the problems. Now, soon after I became an MP, I went to Oldham for a by-election up there. I was taken to a street to meet a woman who I was told had strong views on immigration. I knocked on the door. She invited me in. We had a cup of tea and a rich tea biscuit. And then, as we sat there, she got her photo album out and showed me pictures of her at the wedding of her Asian neighbour. She was proud that she was her neighbour and her friend. Now, I'm not the most patient person, as anybody in my family will tell you, and I started thinking, what is going on here? And then we finally got to it. She told me that a group of men from Eastern Europe had recently moved into her street. They sat on her wall, didn't put their rubbish out at the right time, and spat on the ground. To her, that broke the little but important rules of her street. She didn't like it. Then I realised what was really happening. And conference, what was really happening is that she, an ordinary working-class woman from Oldham, a Labour voter, felt that she had to prove to a Labour politician that she wasn't racist before she could even bring up the issues in her community. Now, I've carried that with me through all the bad years, conference. Whatever our intentions, we had become a party that patronised working people. And that is why we changed the party. Yet, conference, there are still some people who can't listen in good faith on this issue, who say we can ignore the crisis and our asylum system so long as we get the economy moving. I have to say to those people very directly, we will tackle this issue. The British people are not unreasonable. They're pragmatic, compassionate, tolerant. That's who we are. What people want from politics, that hasn't changed. They want more cash in their pockets, safer streets, opportunities for their children, and an NHS that's fit for the future. And yes, they want secure borders. And that is a reasonable demand. Now, we should always say plainly and with pride that asylum for people genuinely fleeing persecution is the mark of a decent, compassionate country. But secure borders are also vital for a decent, compassionate country. Controlling who comes here is an essential task of government. And there's nothing compassionate or progressive in a vile trade that loads people into overcrowded boats, puts them in grave danger in the Channel, and ultimately exploits human desperation and hope. So mark my words, we will stop this, we will smash the gangs, we will crack down on illegal working, we will remove people with no right to be here, and we will secure Britain's borders. But there is a line, a moral line. And it isn't just Farage who crosses it. There are also people who should know better, sowing fear and discord across our country. And then when we call it out, they pretend that we're criticising reasonable concerns about immigration. We have seen that trick, conference. So let us spell it out once and for all. Controlling migration is a reasonable goal. But if you throw bricks and smash up private property, that's not legitimate. That is thuggery. Thank you, conference. Free speech, free speech. Free speech is a British value, and we have guarded it for centuries. But if you incite racist violence and hatred, that is not expressing concern, it's criminal. And this party, this great party, is proud of our flags. Yet if they're painted alongside graffiti, telling a Chinese takeaway owner to go home, that's not pride, that's racism. And conference. If you say or imply that people cannot be English or British because of the colour of their skin, that mixed heritage families owe you an explanation, that people who've lived here for generations, raised their children here, built their lives here, working in our schools, our hospitals, running businesses, are our neighbours. If you say they should now be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have, because you are the enemy of national renewal. And it will be a fight conference. It doesn't get easier from here. And the tough decisions, they will keep on coming. Look, we inherited public finances where the Tories piled up mountains of debt with next to no boost in productivity to show for it. Unprecedented. And in a world as volatile as ours, that's dangerous. It demands firm and fair decisions to